Welcome, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the 2023 Dive In Festival. My name is Kayla Gorrell, and I'm very honored and excited to be the host of today's session, which is called Shattering the Mask, Authenticity in an Inclusive Workplace. I'm a senior DEI training specialist for Philadelphia insurance companies. So first off, I want to thank our global sponsors today, Travelers Insurance, Aon, Philadelphia Insurance Companies, Tokyo Marine, Munich, and AXA XL. So as you know at this point, the theme for this year is Driving Innovation, the Power of Inclusion, and we hope to bring that theme to life through our discussion today. One other thing that I want to know before we kick off is that this is the 9th year of the Dive In Festival, and this is the first time that you will be able to apply your participation towards continuing education hours. So make sure you look that up on the website so you get your credit for attending, engaging, and participating. All right, so I am going to pass it over to one of our panelists today, Ethan Bartiromo, and he's going to kick us off with a spoken word piece.
Hello, so I'm Ethan Bartiromo. This past summer, I was an intern as an actuary at. This is specifically a poem that I wrote when I was working in on school, and I wrote this in a poetry class specifically about my experiences with autism and the educational environment that people with autism have to be in. So here we go. These people had a disability. Einstein, Newton, Darwin, Dickinson, Mozart, Gates, Jobs, Seinfeld, Galileo, Michelangelo, myself. Would you consider these minds of their time greater than thine because among us they shine, intellectual dimes floating above us as if we are saturated brine? But these people had a disability. Socially awkward, mentally topward, soaring through the sky like an I can't stop bird. 1 in 59 kids are diagnosed, and they are lumped on the spectrum we all know. But these people have a disability. Fun fact, all facts are fun facts. When knowledge is what you try not to lack, and when you don't know who's got your back because you can't tell a fake smile from a real one. Emotions come difficult, the trade comes easy. But you can't get into the trade without the connections that are so hard to make, believe me. But I am part of these people that have a disability. Why are people categorized into dis or abled? Sure, I get extra time on a test that I don't need. I get counseling and therapy to train me to act like I'm human as if I am some dog walking on 2 legs saying, hello, nice to meet you. I do not need pity. I'm already giddy. Happiness never fading. I have plenty. It's called autism. I'm a part of these people who have this ability. These are my experiences, but it shows an innate flaw in the education and the educational environment of people who are not all the same. We may act as if we conform to the specified rules laid out by the lab's observations of us, but similar shapes come in different sizes. The magnitude once symbolized as autism 1, 2, or 3 is given up for an uncountable set of variants. I am part of these people who have the inability to be justly accommodated. So that was a poem, and I was actually the president of the creative writing club at my school, which was Rochester Institute of Technology, which I received a bachelor's and master's in math from. As I said, I had an actuarial internship this summer and the previous summer at Travelers. And overall, one of my goals in life is to become FCAS. So I want to be an actuary full time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you for sharing that wonderful poem. So up on the screen, there are the learning objectives, and just to be as inclusive as possible, I'm going to read them out loud real quick, and we do have closed captioning activated. So today's objectives are for us to discuss and explain the reasons why people mask at work. So if you're not familiar with that term, we'll get into that. We are going to identify the disadvantages of masking for the individual and for the organization. We're going to challenge what is considered professional at work, so the existing definition and expectations of professionalism. And we're going to describe an environment where everyone can be their best authentic selves. So I'm now going to hand it over to Amanda Bara, who is our moderator for today.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you for being a leader during this event and helping us put this together. It wouldn't be done without you and everybody who helped create this event. Ethan, that was very deep and honest and freaking amazing, to be frank. I loved your poem. So my name is Amanda Bara. I'm 32 years old. I identify as female. I started out here at AXA XL in 2014 as a premium auditor. I'm now a senior business analyst for the transformation and tools team, working to produce tools and strategies that will help move our underwriting community forward. I identify as a neurospicy individual with ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, major depression, and OCD. I was pulled towards this event because I relate with masking in the workplace and throughout my life. I know what it's like to be and not to be my most authentic self when I'm at work. I am currently a leader at AXA XL's Enable BRG, a resource group that strives to empower our colleagues with visible and invisible disabilities and caregivers and advocates of those individuals. It's so important to understand why neurodivergent and neurospicy individuals need to mask, or how masking can hinder or help their workplace and professional experience. It is a gift and a curse, a tool to help us compartmentalize tasks and feelings, and sometimes a hindrance when we feel like we are hiding part of ourselves. We are using this Dive-In Festival as a platform to help colleagues throughout the industry understand how we operate and how they can help our experience in the workplace. I'm really proud of this event and being able to share these panelist stories. And I am honored to be a part of this event and to be part of this conversation with this esteemed group of panelists. I'm now going to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to hand it over to Kurt Iobst. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kurt Iobst. I'm normally based in Pennsylvania, but I'm currently just outside of Los Angeles. I am a Caucasian male, mid-40s, with a black shirt with polka dots on it, and clear frame glasses for anyone who is. My pronouns are he, him. I'm also autistic, and I was actually first diagnosed with neurodivergences when I was around 8 with ADHD. But as we discovered as I matured, I'm far more autistic than I am ADHD. I work at Salesforce. I am a senior success manager at Salesforce and as I spent time at Salesforce, I saw their large employee resource group, Abilityforce, which was for the empowerment and support for the disability group. And as I became active in this group, I was asked to start a neurodiversity group at Salesforce, and we did so. And I am now the global president of the neurodiversity group at Salesforce, which is a really large group of professionals that work in the tech space. So that's what I've been doing for a bit. And I'm really excited to be here and to work with those on the panel.
Thank you, Kurt, and welcome. I look forward to our conversation. Dr. Austin, would you like to go next?
Thank you for inviting me to do so. Hello, everyone. Hola, buenos dias. My name is Kristin Austin. I use she series pronouns. I am a Black woman, and I have 2 braids in my hair that lead into 2 curly ponytails. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and I have obnoxiously oversized tan glasses. I am extremely excited to join you all on this panel and lean in to the topic of shattering masks and when we use them, why we use them, why we shouldn't, why they're harmful. My professional background is in higher education, and I currently work for a international not-for-profit organization that amplifies diversity in tech. So that is what I do as my day job. Other identities I hold are neurodiverse as a person with ADHD and severely learning disabled. I'm extremely excited to contribute to the voices that are being raised in this panel. And I live in Pennsylvania. I am currently at a tech conference in Orlando, Florida.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. I love your curly ponytail braids. They're awesome. Ethan, would you like to go next?
Yes, of course. So I did give a little bit of an overview, but I guess sticking with the same kind of idea as everyone else, I am neurodivergent. I have ADHD, autism, OCD, PTSD. So I have a few different things that all fall into that category. Like I said, I graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology with my bachelor's and master's. I graduated at age 21. I'm currently with my hair pulled back. I have long hair. I am wearing a maroon collared shirt. And I really just, I want to share my experiences with people because overall, the more people can learn, whether it's from me or not, I feel like it's the better because I like to teach. That's why I tutor people as well in math and other subjects such as computer science, physics, English. But overall, I feel like a smart world and a logical world is a better world. So I try to always give people their all the information to make their own opinions. So.
Thank you, Ethan. I couldn't have said it better myself. Sorry, I'm hearing a bit of an echo. It's throwing me off. So thank you to our panelists. I look forward to having this conversation with you. As some of you in the audience may have noticed, Kayla put our Slido on the screen. You can go into slido.com and put the hashtag number that's down there, and it'll take you right to the poll. Or you can scan the QR code. The QR code will bring you to the poll question, and we also have a Q&A there, so feel free to put your questions that you have for our panelists at the end. We're going to leave some time, hopefully, unless this conversation is just so good. We'll have some questions for our panelists at the end. So let us go over to the poll. I'll share my screen so that we can go into the poll. And while the poll is being taken, I'm going to give some people some definitions of neurodiversity masking, and some, what the definition for professionalism is in the workplace. So let me share my screen. Yes, so awesome. We're getting some people in the poll right now. So the question that we have to the audience is, what do you consider unprofessional behavior in the workplace? Hopefully you can see that. Hold on. I just want to show, oh no, there's like 3 screens on here. Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm just showing. So what do you consider unprofessional behavior in the workplace? There is no wrong answers. For those, overachievers out there, there are no right answers either. So sorry about that. And we have various, answers. So talking over people in conversations, eavesdropping or butting into conversations, dominating the conversation, spelling errors, lack of spatial awareness, candor or very straightforwardness, wearing dark tinted glasses, multitasking too much, not making eye contact, not taking notes, not engaging in small talk, too much eye contact, or using out of the box presentation. And there's probably a million more, but I can't possibly list them all. And for people out there that want some definitions, so what is professionalism in the workplace? Professionalism in the workplace refers to a way in which employees carry themselves, the attitudes they convey, and the way they communicate with coworkers and clients. In other words, it is a conduct, attitude, and behavior of a worker. So that is, the Google definition of professionalism. And what we're here today to tell you about is what neurodivergent masking is. This is also a definition that I found on, quite a few sites. There isn't a lot of information out there, unfortunately, but we're here to change that. So neurodivergent masking is the act of hiding one's traits that are part of their neurodivergence in order to fit into society. This can be done for a variety of reasons, but is often a way for neural minorities to avoid discrimination and stigma. While there are many ways an individual might choose to mask their condition, there are some commonalities among them. They tend to be subtle and hard to protect, like speech patterns, facial expressions, body language, and so on. And even the way you write can be masking. They involve changing how you dress, to style themselves, to look more like what normal people or what people consider normal to look like. For example, someone with autism might wear clothes that cover up more skin if they don't like people touching them, or they feel uncomfortable by people, being in their space. Another person might budget time to travel if they have ritualized behaviors like OCD, or in my case, ADHD. I have to go in and out of the house like 5 times before I remember everything. So I always budget extra time. And those are, some of the things that are what masking is. And all of these things in the poll are also part of, masking, even though you might not know it. Eavesdropping and butting into conversations. I know I'm not eavesdropping on purpose. It's just like if I'm at a restaurant or, even in the workplace, I can hear like 3 different conversations going on, and including the one that I'm having. And then, I'm just like listening in, and I can't help it. It's not something that I can help. So, that happens to neurodivergent people. And there's 106 people. Keep them coming. That's awesome. And we're getting a lot of answers, which is awesome. But, we're going to continue with the poll. And then we're also going to start with our panel. So keep answering, and maybe, by listening to this panel, it'll change your attitude towards what is professional and what is not, especially when it comes to people with disabilities in the workplace. I'm going to unshare my screen, or actually I'll keep it shared. That way we can all see the results as we're going. And I'm going to start sending some questions to the panel. So panelists, I think this question is a good one for Kurt and possibly Dr. Austin. Kurt, you can go first if you want. The question is, what do you think of the current definition or expectation of professionalism in most offices? And can you identify some examples of professionalism that may not be as valid as they once were?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you. I'm really excited to hear Dr. Austin's response as well. But I'm going to just share a little bit about myself. So being autistic, one of the things about my autism is and let me just state by saying, this is not my saying, this has been said over and over. If you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. We're all so very different. We are, there's the term that gets thrown around a lot, spectrum, for a reason. I think of it as like a series of knobs, and each knob is a different aspect of autism. And this isn't just autism, but this is neurodiversity as a whole. Some things affect me more than other things. Some things don't affect me as much. So oddly, I have auditory processing. So talking over people in conversations to me sends my anxiety from 0 to 10, and I get super irritable, and I don't mean to be. I just my brain wants to always hear every single word in the room, and if there's music playing, if there's a TV on the background, the most painful places for me to be are coffee shops, not bars. Bars are loud, but coffee shops, because people are just talking at an audible level. So this is one of those things where it kind of ties two things together. The talking over people in conversations is very difficult for me, and I tend to not get a word in if it is the type of conversation where you have to find your hole to speak. But also another one was actually one of the professional things that I saw pop up was people who, if you can scroll down on that, I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. But there was an aspect, thank you very much, which was not using small talk or doing things like that. That's really difficult for me, because I start to think about and another one was eavesdropping into the conversation. I just hear everything. I'm not trying to. And in public, I actually wear. Let me make sure they're on camera. I wear special earplugs to filter things out. So I think this is becoming less and less of a professionalism as people are starting to advocate for themselves. And I'm somebody who works that is client facing. I have many large clients that I have to go and meet, and my professionalism may look a little different than someone else's, because yes, I am wearing earplugs. I may even wear noise canceling headphones when I meet people, especially when I'm in an office environment. Always have them on. So I think by advocating for myself, it also advocates for others by saying, hey, this is what's, and I'm going to use air quotes, normal or typical for me. So by doing this, it actually makes it more normal or typical for others. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Austin.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. Yes. So, before I even identify some of the characteristics of professionalism, right, and many of those that have been provided in the Slido, I like to level set with folks to reflect on where their original expectations and understandings of professionalism came from. Because if you don't do that, then what ends up happening is you rinse and repeat what you have been taught without bringing out what may not apply. So historically, the standards of professionalism have been written and upheld and empowered and gatekept by white able-bodied, neurotypical, cisgendered, straight Christian identities. So if the more of those identities you don't align with personally, the further away from professional you are likely to come off as and present as. And it's not because you are not professional, it's because you don't hold or align with those dominant identities. So there are so many examples, many that Kurt has mentioned already. For me, for Kristin, I know we'll probably talk about code switching, but with my ADHD and my learning disability, I need a lot of, I would say, pictorial descriptions of where events and meetings and things are going to take place, because my learning disability is called dyscalculia. So my brain does not interpret numbers, basically. So if you say room 237, okay, well, when I am in the physical space and I'm looking for room 237, I may read that as 732, or I may read it as 327, because my brain can't process that. However, if I were to say to someone in preparation for an event, can you give me a picture, a map of where the room is? Some people might say, well, that's unprofessional. Just go to room 237. Or it's unprofessional even to ask for a different type of directions. But it's not, because either I'm going to get there because you give me directions that I can work with, or I'm going to wander around and feel defeated and then still have to show up and mask because I've just been lost for 2 hours, but now I have to come be in this meeting and settle myself and be professional. Something that I like to compare this to is that in Western American culture, it is very normalized, right, to have business meetings in happy hours, bars, or something like a golf course. That's very normalized. However, if you have a person on your team who requires assistive technology, for example, to navigate, a golf course would not potentially be an ideal place to conduct a business meeting. Or if you have a person on your team that is pursuing a sobriety journey, a bar may not be an ideal place to conduct a business meeting. So despite the fact that these two concepts of bars or golf courses have been normalized to be a place where business takes place, it's professional, these are two really concrete examples that most people can wrap their minds around that are very exclusive to some identities or some lived experiences. So as neurodiverse individuals, it's the same thing. Things that have been normalized as professional can be extremely marginalizing to those of us with spicy brains or learning disabilities, physical disabilities.
Ethan, I see you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so with the unprofessional behavior and a lot of these, the top three, actually, I find myself very, I guess I do that a lot, right? I find myself very, I don't know, but I end up, I'm always so excited to say what I have to say because I love conversation. I love talking to people. I'm a very social person, so sometimes I accidentally talk over somebody. I've been very good about it recently where like in a professional setting, I end up waiting my turn, and like sometimes because of that, I end up forgetting what I have to say. And so then they have to come back to me because I'm like, oh, wait, what was I about to say right now while you guys were talking? But which is a good mechanism for dealing with that, and I feel like I've gotten a lot better at that. But then the eavesdropping and butting into conversations, exactly like the other panelists said, like I hear everything at once, right? So, for example, there could be a train going by on the side of the road. There could be an airplane above us and a siren 3 blocks down. The radio is on in the car and someone's talking to me in the passenger seat. And I comprehend and get all of that at once, So it's like, and it could be overwhelming, yes. That's why personally, like, if something's very loud and I can't actually have a conversation, it sometimes bothers me unless it's specifically something that I enjoy. Like I specifically like, I went to a 50 Cent concert recently, and I really like 50 Cent, so I was just singing along to it. It was super loud. I love concerts, but only if it's like something that I enjoy, It's not the fact that, oh, I don't like this music, so I don't want to listen to it. It's the fact, oh, I don't like how loud it is, but I'm willing to accept it if I like it. Does that make sense? And then lastly, with the dominating the conversation, I do that so often. I don't even realize it because I feel like being not neurodivergent, the way that I show that I understand and I sympathize and empathize with the person, even if it's not something that they feel is an issue, like if I relate to that, I will show you that I relate to that by mentioning my own experience with something similar, and it kind of makes me feel like I'm incorporating the conversation and making you seem heard, but really other people see it as me just trying to get heard, and that's something that really just like some people that I've talked to don't understand, even when I do explain it to them, that I'm not trying to dominate the conversation. I'm trying to show you that you're heard, but really, so it's difficult in times because that's just how I think, and I can't really change that, so.
I totally get that. Everything all of you said, I completely relate to. I hear everything all of the time. When I find myself going to the grocery store, or, if I'm not somewhere with my husband, who's like my, my rock, my teddy bear, someone that I could like focus on, I usually have headphones in, I'm listening to music. It's not to keep people out, which sometimes it is, it can be a wall, but it's also just to like help me focus my mind and steady myself, because, even going to a grocery store sometimes makes me a little anxious because like, what if someone comes up and like asks me something, or, I have to talk to somebody, but I don't know them. Like if I have my headphones on, no one's going to bother me, but also it just helps me focus. So I totally get everything that you guys say. As for, professionalism, I wear my headphones at work, when I'm working. That lets people know that, I'm busy, but as soon as I take my headphones off, or maybe I like slide a headphone off, that way they know they can come to me for something. And also, I'm just like Dr. Austin. I kind of just let people know, I level set too, like this is how I am. It did take me a while to get to that point. And I try to just be as honest with people as possible. That way, everybody's expectations are on the same level. I don't want somebody to come to me and be like, oh, I wasn't expecting this of you. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what I didn't want you to not expect. So, just level set. I totally agree with everything you guys said. So thank you. This is, a question for all of you. How would you guys define masking? This can be directed to those who identify with being differently abled. So how, masking is different for everyone. We all do it in a different way. How would you define how you mask? Do you find it helpful? Do you find it harmful? Is it just there? Whoever wants to answer, Dr. Austin, you're unmuted, please.
I did, yeah. So I think masking and unmasking can be both protective, a protection mechanism, and it can also be liberating. So one of the two. Sometimes we're not in spaces where we can completely demask because we don't feel safe. So I do not identify as autistic, but I have a daughter, an amazing daughter who is autistic, and she stims quite a bit. And sometimes she is in situations where she doesn't feel physically safe stimming. And so she may mask, and we are working on empowering her to feel, she's younger, to feel comfortable stimming wherever she is. But we also don't want to ignore the fact that sometimes it's not safe and could create an environment where she may invite bullying. Something physical could happen to her because people are making fun of her. Just any number of possibilities. So I do want to mention that masking can be protective. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it can be protective, but then it can also be liberating. So I will sometimes mask if I think that it's going to bring a shorter, if it's going to be a shorter distance between what I want and the outcome that I need. So for example, if I have to go to a social event that's going to be very overstimulating, I may front load and mask probably maybe the first 20 to 30 minutes where I do a lot of talking, a lot. And I'm masking when I'm doing that because I'm taking in a lot of energy. But then I may go find a respite spot where I can totally demask and do whatever I need to do that is rejuvenating. But that means that I miss maybe the last 40 minutes of an event. So for me, I just strategically mask in the sense that I'll be extremely extroverted and take in all of this stimuli for 20 minutes, but it saves me from having to do it from an hour, perhaps. So a little bit of that. But then also, I'm a huge fan of just demasking completely. I think showing up unapologetically who you are is really empowering when you are in a safe place that you can do so. I think it also normalizes different social behaviors as being professional or being pro-social. It really normalizes those things. Part of the reason that I professionally use my title of Dr. Austin is because I always also follow up with the fact that I'm neurodiverse and learning disabled, because in doing so, that takes that, people with doctorates, they're kind of like, people think they're super smart. But when you add those other things, it gives a really good, like, oh, wow, I had this perception of a person with a doctorate, and then I had this perception of neurodiverse or autistic people, and now she's coupling those things together. That type of visibility and representation helps you unmask because you're constantly pushing the visibility of the diversity of neurodiversity.
Thank you,
Dr. Austin, we're getting a couple questions if you could explain what stemming is. I don't know if I said that right. Yes.
Yes, stimming. Oh my goodness, yes. So stimming is actually an incredibly natural and healthy response to stimuli. It is a healthy response. So years and years ago, when autism was made popular, I would say, by the movie Rain Man, a lot of people started to associate behaviors like rocking or shaking hands, maybe tapping certain surfaces. That movie did a good thing in that it raised awareness that autism is a diagnosis. Autism is a culture. It is a movement, a people that deserves visibility. But then it also gave a very narrow view of things like stimming. So stimming is very healthy. It is a way that your body releases stress, releases stimuli, copes with the incoming stimuli. And again, the more common things that you see are people rocking or perhaps waving their hands or tapping. But you see these things in public, and historically, there's been some really oppressive behaviors associated with stimming where we've tried to make people not stim. But we now are slowly moving the needle to understand that stimming is very, very healthy. And it is a way for individuals to release stress, de-stress. Stimming is very, very healthy. Healthy. So that's what stimming is.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dr. Austin. Ethan, I see that you want to chime in, please.
Yeah, so I was also going to, before they asked the questions what stimming was, I was actually going to introduce like my take on that. So like stimming, it's not, it's spelled STIM because it's for stimuli. Like Dr. Austin said, it's for releasing the stimulus and kind of like getting out what's inside of you, And personally, like, it's I clap a lot. So like I just like I try to make as loud of a clap as I can because the popping noise just like makes me happy, you know? And so it's like like she said, it's a very, very common way to relieve stress, and it's healthy because I know it's kind of put inside the autism community that like pretty much everyone with autism has a stim. So whether it's one thing or another, mine is usually clapping, but it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be any one thing, or it could change as time goes on. You don't have to stick with the same stim for the same person, and there's a difference between stimming and what I have also, which are tics, which tics are completely involuntary, whereas stimming is technically voluntary, and you can choose to do it or not to do it, but it's healthier to do it. And tics, I can't control, but I can at least, this is how I personally mask. I can tone them down a little bit. So if you see me like looking around at all, that's because my actual tic is to like move my neck to that side, like that. And so I just kind of like slowly do it to kind of like take away the urge to continue to go fast and then I also have an eye twitch where like I would just wink like that, but it's very like it's not very good. I've had people say like, "Oh, why are you winking at me?" or something like that, you know? And it's really I've learned to completely get rid of that by just blinking a lot, because if I close the other eye, like one eye doesn't seem too bad if both eyes are closed, you know? So that's one way of masking for me. I mask my twitches, which are tics that I cannot control, and it's really and it depends on my medication and everything that I'm working with at that given time. So that like some medications have side effects of more tics, some have side effects of less tics. So and they get rid of them. So, but back to the stimming part, when I clap, I don't really clap unless I feel extremely comfortable. So it's sort of like it's not necessarily like I feel uncomfortable, so I don't do it. It's that when I feel extremely comfortable, I do. Like, I've had my friends who didn't really know that this was a thing. Like, I've been in the grocery store with one of my best friends, and I just clap. Like, and she's like, what was that about? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, like, I do that. And she's like, oh, I've never seen you do that before, you know? And so, like, I don't do it in the workplace because, like, that's loud, it's distracting, you know? But it's not necessarily it's not that necessarily that I don't do it because it's distracting. I just to do it, you know? So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ethan. I agree. Sometimes, we can't help it. And maybe even sometimes we get, our insecurities get in the way. I'll do something that's completely normal to me. And then someone will, from work or something is like, I've never seen you do it before. Like, I'm a hummer. I think that's my stim. I just hum or whistle, or I get earworms a lot. So if you don't know what an earworm is out there, it's when the song gets stuck in your head. And I think it's worse for me because I love music. So a song, like whatever my favorite song is that day will just get stuck in my head forever and ever until I listen to a new song. And it's kind of like my brain stimming, but it's not out loud because I can't sing. I can't hold a tune if someone paid me to. So I'm not going to do that out loud. But that is my stim. So I'll just start like humming or whistling the song. And, sometimes you can't help but let it out. Yeah, and that's also a form of masking. Kurt, I see you have your hand up, so please, I don't want you to forget or not get what you say out.
So I wanted just a few pieces of clarity. We asked what masking is. Masking really is being somebody that you're not. And the problem with masking, and this really wasn't covered, is that it drains our energy at a much higher rate. If you're not familiar with spoon theory, I encourage you to look up what spoon theory is. I don't want to go into it because it's an easy Google, but it kind of works along the spoon theory. And this is how I can relate masking to everyone. Think about how your cell phone works on a very hot day. You've got about an hour before the battery is fried, and that's masking. When I am fully masking, or when I feel that I need to mask to fit into a situation, and by the way, everyone masks, not just the neurodivergent or neurospicy, as some people like to say. Everyone can mask to make themselves appear more professional or appear a certain way that they think that society should perceive them. But it runs our batteries out very, very, very quickly. And the issue with the neurodivergent is when we run our batteries out, until we get some sleep or a lot of quiet time or spend time, stimming, we are going to be useless. I can actually be nonverbal when I run my battery to zero. I can't answer questions. I'll sit there and stammer. And I also wanted to add one more thing, just a point, and I'll wrap this up because I don't want to use up too much time. But stimming or stimulating isn't something, once again, that is just related to the neurodivergent. Everyone stims. Think about it. When you're, they say a lot of times when someone's flirting, they're playing with their hair. That's a stim. So you may see me rocking. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel comfortable. It is something that I can shut off, but I also don't realize that I'm doing it most of the time. And I am very guilty of happy stimming. When something gets me excited, you'll see me bouncing almost like a little kid, because that's just a natural response for me. So that's all I have about that.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Ethan, did you want to say something really quick? Because I would like to also go into the next question.
I had one more quick thing. So with like another thing that I do a lot is pace. So if I like, that's something like you said, Kurt, you said you rock a lot. I do that too, but mostly like standing up. So like I will, instead of just rocking my upper body, I will pretty much move my entire body back and forth by walking back and forth, pacing. But then there was also a question really quickly. It says, my kiddo stims by touching their thumb to each finger on their hand. I do something like that. So with my OCD, if I accidentally touch one knee, I have to touch the other knee in the exact same spot. Or like if I touch the palm of my hand, I have to touch the palm of my hand of the other hand. And that's something that I feel immensely like there's a weight on my shoulders if I don't do that, and it's like that. I feel like that's very similar to what your kid might be experiencing, like touching the fingers, thumbs on each hand, because like maybe they accidentally brushed it on their pants or something, and now they have to touch the other hand. And on top of that, one more thing, sorry. There's whenever I'm walking by a wall, like a brick wall, like a cement or cinder block wall, I will just like it's really satisfying for me to just like punch the side of it really softly, just like with the side of my hand, like just like as I'm walking down the wall, just kind of like hit the wall. But yeah, that's another one. But yeah, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay, Ethan. Thank you. Your perspective it brings light to people that might not otherwise know. There are people that need to know these things out there. And when they do, hopefully, it creates a better space for all of us. So thank you for that. We don't have too much time left because we want to leave time for questions, but I do want to ask this question to you, Dr. Austin. Do you think masking is, I'm asking this specifically because you have, as a woman of color and you're neurodiverse, you have, a very unique perspective on things. So the question is, is masking, do you consider masking similar to code switching? And do you, code switch at work? For those that don't know, maybe you can explain what code switching is really quick as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely have some intersectional identities going on here. And code switching is very similar to masking. It's basically a protective behavior that one might engage in order to fit in, as Kurt said, or try to get the most out of the social norms of the environment. If they're in a networking event and they too want to talk to 4 or 5 recruiters, they may mask or code switch, which I'll more specifically define in a moment, in order to get the most out of that environment, or in order to get an equitable experience in that environment, which is not actually equitable to the person doing the masking and code switching, but it's yet another example of how marginalized groups have to work harder in order to have an equitable experience. Code switching in particular has to do with your lexicon. It has to do with the rhythm and the balance of your vocal cords. So I'm not a professor at this moment, but just because I'm working at this nonprofit, but in my career as a professor, code switch, you could think of code switching as like your professor voice. So when I'm in the classroom, the ways in which I move and mold and contour my voice to keep the audience engaged could be a type of code switching. But then the ways in which I talk to my kids, like, get yourself together, I don't know who you think you are, that could be a type of code switching. And then the way that we talk collegially with colleagues, perhaps in a business setting or in a casual setting, it's basically adjusting your voice and lexicon to fit in to the environment that you're in. Again, very draining. It's almost like being bilingual. It disproportionately affects people of color because they are more likely to have a cultural lexicon and a cultural perspective on language that differs from those major those dominant identities that I mentioned. But that's what code switching is. It is a type of masking that is specific to language use, language demonstration. So I don't recommend it. One of the things that I often tell the students that I work with now is code switching can get you in the door, but you will often have to maintain it to stay in the door. And that is so exhausting. I often compare it to dating, right? When you meet someone that you're dating, you want to be your authentic self at that first date, because otherwise you're going to have to keep up that inauthentic self if that's the person that the partner ends up liking, and it's not sustainable. So that's a little bit about what code switching is. Don't recommend it. Highly disproportionately affects people of color, marginalized identities. I'm happy to lean into that more based on time and questions.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I just want to thank all 3 of you guys for being so honest, very deep, and enlightening, not just to, myself, but the audience. Being in this conversation really opened my eyes to, learning more about myself, which is why I started on this journey for, through the BRG that I'm a part of at AXA. And, it really opened my eyes, and talking with all of you just gave me a new perspective. Sometimes, I myself have my own biases against me because, I'm like, this is how I should be in this place kind of thing. But also I'm just trying to be the best that I can. And sometimes I don't feel like that. It's about self-confidence and being who you are. And I feel like, you're at work 8 hours a day, 4 times a week, whether you work from home or whether you're in the office. That's a lot of time, and you can't mask all of the time, right? You just want to be you most of the time. So I think this is a good conversation, and I'm glad they gave us this forum to open up about this, and I hope a lot of people can learn. So thank you all. I'm going to pass it off to Kayla so she can send you guys some questions.
Right. Thank you all. That was so interesting, and I wish we could go on and on, because I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg with all the things that you'd be able to share. And I failed to give my inclusive introduction earlier, so I'll do it real quick now. I'm African American. I'm about 5'5", and today I'm wearing a dark purple, or I guess eggplant dress. So if you to give a visual for everyone. All right, so we have some questions rolling in that are really good. So we'll get to as many of them as we can. What do you do when you feel overstimulated in the workspace or workplace? Are there ways to create a safe environment in the office? Maybe we'll have one person take this one.
If it's all right, I'll take this one. The trick is to avoid the overstimulation. That's really the best thing. It is far easier to set yourself up for success if you self-advocate and you advocate for others before you get to that point, because once you hit that overstimulation, it can be hard to get out of it. It definitely takes time. It's not just a walk outside or something along those lines. It can take more time. So one of the things I actually do oftentimes is if I'm meeting people or working with people for the first time, I ask for some ground rules. I actually did it this morning as we were meeting on this panel. I actually was very clear, and I stated that if we talk over each other, I'm not going to be able to process as well. So we were guilty of that. We were talking over each other as we were setting this up. So doing things like that by self-advocating, by saying things in your group ahead of time, and just say, listen. And it could be, ways we converse. It could be camera off. You may be having one of those days where I just can't have the camera on. Eye contact was something that was touched upon in the beginning. I will stare at people's noses or foreheads because looking into their eyes makes me feel like my skin's on fire. I don't know why it does. It just does. So the answer is to try to avoid overstimulation as quickly as you can. But if you get to that point where you truly are overstimulated, I need to be in a quiet room, dark room, a lot of times with two pillows, one below my head, one above my head, just feeling sandwiched. That's how I reset. And if you overstimulate too much, that can actually lead towards burnout, and burnout can be a much larger conversation. So there you are.
Thank you, Kurt, for that very comprehensive answer. Yeah, so it sounds like the best way to go is to anticipate it, plan ahead, and then be that self-advocacy. That we could have a whole lot of conversation on that. So I'm glad that you threw that word in there because that's, I think, super important for many different things, and certainly the topic today. So speaking of self-advocacy, that goes into the next question I want to share here. And maybe Dr. Austin, you can take this one. How do you effectively challenge some of these quote unquote professional standards that people adhere to and begin to redefine what professionalism looks like for an inclusive workplace?
Yes. Oh my gosh. The answer to that, and actually my answer is going to come from a place of privilege, right? I want to start there. Because I'm at a place in my career where I have a lot more safety, where I can push boundaries a lot further because of where I sit, degrees, unfortunately. So my strategy is to call people on their supremacy or their ism in that moment. So a couple of days ago, I was in a meeting and a virtual meeting, and we were celebrating a grant that we had received. And what I did when we were all celebrating, I said, yes, come through, team. That's what I said. And then other people were like, yay. And then after the meeting ended, someone from a different organization that we worked on the grant with, they were like, hey, it didn't seem like your enthusiasm was very professional. Like, I wouldn't recommend that that's how you celebrate. Because again, what I said was, yes, come through, team. So A, what they were doing was tone policing. And B, what they were doing is suggesting that another person can say, yay, but I can't say, come through, team, when really all I was doing was exclaiming the same level of excitement that my white peers were exclaiming, but I was using a different lexicon. Again, I was not code switching. So I didn't say, woo, that's not what is natural to me to say. What is natural to me to say is, yes, team, we pulled up. And there's no problem with that. So challenging those norms and challenging those expectations and pushing back in the moment when those things happen is so important. So that's what I try to do. But I, again, acknowledge that that's coming from a place of privilege. I'm at the table where I can make those pushes.
And thank you so much for providing that context, because I think that speaks to when someone does see that happening to someone else that may not be in a position where they can push back and,
Right.
not have dire consequences, where the ally can,
Yes.
come through, roll up, whatever, and say, okay,
Exactly.
let me, say something on behalf of this individual. Thank you so much. So we're going to squeeze in one more question. This one will be for Ethan. This person's asking, do you ever feel guilty for asking for accommodation? So another kind of self-advocacy theme here for stimming in the workplace. And do you have advice for those who may experience guilt and how they can move through that feeling?
Yeah, of course. So we only have 1 minute, so I'll be quick about this. But I personally, even though, again, it's not a stim, it was my Twitch, but I, my first day of work at Travelers this summer, I went to the person right next to me and I said, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be staring at you the entire summer. I just look that direction, and it helps people understand that, it's not anything they're doing or anything I'm doing. It's just something that's happening. But yeah, and I am proud of my autism, and I want to continue to be myself, and I want people to accept me just as I accept them. But yeah, so also, if anyone wants to follow me on LinkedIn, and you can reach out with any questions that you have after this, it's Ethan Bartiromo. In my name, Bartiromo. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. That hour flew by, and it was a pleasure putting this together behind the scenes for the last couple months. And if you want to reach out to any of these folks, any of us here, we're all on LinkedIn. So take a screenshot so you have all our names. And great job, everyone. Thank you for the great questions. And sorry we couldn't get to all of them.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Be authentic.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.